All right. Well, welcome to Sleep In Sim with Gareth and Craig. We are joined today by Isaac Gale, one of the co-directors of this amazing new documentary called Swamp Dogg Gets His Pool Painted. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us, Isaac.
Hey.
Absolutely. Well, we're so excited to have your film screening here at the Sidewalk Film Festival coming up. But, the first question, I had known about Swamp Dogg a little bit before this. I learned so much from watching his films. Absolutely mind-boggling, the level of connections he's had, the influence he had. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was, I love the title and I love this framing device for this documentary. Could you talk a little bit about how you got to that point?
Yeah, I mean that's like the first thing that we came up with was the name of the movie, and then went from there. Really, like we went out to Swamp Dogg's house. Ryan, who I co-directed this with, is a music producer. So he had been working with Swamp, I think, since about 2015 on the album Love, Lost, and Autotune. So when that came out, that in 2017, he brought me out there to make a music video and to work on just some of the art for that album. So that album cover is him sitting at the edge of that pool. Um, and yeah, like while we were out there making that music video, people just kept showing up to his house and like hanging out while we were doing whatever scene. And, it was just such a great vibe there. And, I didn't know anything about Swamp Dogg showing up there. Just like I was learning on the fly as he, like everything coming out of his mouth is like an amazing story about something. Um, So he asked us, like, you know anyone who paints pools? And we were like, why? He's like, because he's always had a dream of having a black swimming pool. And so we were like, well, we know a guy who paints. And we brought Swamp Dogg to our friend Jesse, who's the painter in the movie. We brought him to his studio, and they were talking about it. Swamp brought it up again, and yeah, it just kind of clicked. Like, I don't know, let's do a short doc where Swamp Dogg just hangs out while Jesse paints his pool, and we'll just see what they talk about. I didn't think it would even be about anything. I just like everything Swamp says is like a setup for a long, it's a long joke with like a punchline 5 minutes later that you didn't see coming. So I just wanted that.
It fits perfectly, the kind of the serendipitous nature of Swamp Dogg, and then
Yeah.
how this thing comes together. I don't want to give it away what's being painted, but it's amazing how it just brings everything together in a beautiful way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
No, what struck me is about the documentary, and it's just, I know that we've said this over and over again, but it really is such a joy to watch. And if you don't know about Swamp Dogg, you should. He's one of those legendary music figures where you're like, how is he not at the Stevie Wonder or, James Brown or whatever level of musicians? And you do a great job of giving everyone a Swamp Dogg 101 lesson. But it's also the cast of characters in the house. Moog Dog and Guitar Shorty.
Moog Star.
Where did I get that from? Sorry.
Swamp Dogg, Moog Star.
Moog Dog.
Yeah, Moog Dog.
Moog Star.
Moog Star.
Yes, Moog Star.
His story is incredible.
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away with that, but
thank you.
Astonishing story. All of them.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
So did you get to hang, like, how much was hanging out at the house and how much of it that ended up on?
Well, how do I put it? Because like we just kept going every time Ryan sort of had an opportunity to make more music with them, I started tagging along. We kind of shot like a few days. We shot just him hanging out with like people by the pool to see how those conversations went. And they went as you'd kind of imagine. Like we just throw people randomly out there for like an hour in the sun sitting by the pool, and it would like get really awkward and like rambling and weird. So we were like, man, we gotta like figure out some other stuff to do. So we started. It just, as it developed and more we found out like how much Swamp Dogg is sort of deeply connected to all these different genres and over all these time periods to music. It just kept building from there, and Swamp Dogg and Moog Star and Shorty to a little lesser sense. He was a real quiet guy. It was sort of, and he was always busy. He was always on tour or like driving around to play gigs, even to like his 80s. So we didn't hang out with him as much. But yeah, I don't know. Those guys are just so open and so casual. So you just kind of walk in and they just start saying stuff. You're like, wait, let me set up the camera. Like, I don't know, go sit in that chair. Do you want to put on clothes? Swamp would be like, no, I'll just stay in my underwear or whatever. Like, so it's a lot of real hanging out, and then a lot of sort of manufactured hanging out that gives like that sort of vibe. Like, we wanted to lean into, there's all those rock doc tropes where someone's just telling you how great someone is. We didn't want to do that, but we wanted to lean into when it's like an old person sort of rambling on about stuff that you kind of don't care about. Like, we have scenes where Swamp's audio just kind of dips out, and I think it's a Tom Kenny scene, and he's just kind of like fading away. I don't know. Stuff like that was just so fun to play with.
That leads me to my next question is like, I'm assuming they live in the neighborhood. Like, he had such an odd cast of characters that were his friends.
Eclectic.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny Knoxville,
Yeah.
Yola Tango I saw in the background of the pool party.
Yeah. They don't live in the neighborhood. They live in New York or wherever. He has, so we kind of, everyone that we wanted to have conversations with were either Swamp Dogg and Moogstar's actual friends and neighbors, or people that were like fans / friends. Like Johnny Knoxville and him had just kind of recently met because Johnny became a big fan, and he was open to coming over, so we had him come over, and he was kind enough to give us like an hour there. Tom Kenny, I think Swamp, the voice of SpongeBob and a bunch of cartoon characters and Mr. Show and stuff, he was just sort of a longtime fan, and they had built up a friendship over the years, like at shows. So yeah, all those people were just kind of nice enough to come out to the valley where Swamp lives. And then there's a couple people that kind of like are lesser knowns that they were just around. Yola Tango, we were just like, do you want to come to Swamp's 80th birthday? We knew they were big fans. We heard that. And so we brought, they showed up. There's a ton in his birthday scene. There's a ton of people in the background that like could have had their own, a name title on there, but we didn't. Yeah. Vernon Reed's there. Yeah.
How he brought people together. I mean, in an
Totally.
incredible way, both as a lead performer, a supporting performer behind the scenes. He was connecting people in so many ways and supporting others. To see them come back and support him in a beautiful way.
Yeah. And we wanted to like keep the focus on Swamp Dogg and Moogstar in the house, and like we played around with sort of like setting up more people, in giving them more scenes where you could be like, wow, that's Vernon Reed or whatever. But we found that calling out a lot of these people was a little bit more just distracting or something.
Yeah.
You want to keep the focus on him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if and that's a cool little nugget. And if not, it's the story stays focused on Swamp Dogg, and it doesn't matter.
And his house really becomes a character into itself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those situations like, how big is this house? It's like, here's a room, here's a room, here's a room.
It's really big. It's really like stretches. Yeah. It's really funny because we kept going there and we'd be like, Swamp Dogg, don't you like kind of feel the magical energy of this place? And he's just kind of like, no. But Moogstar does. Every time we go out there, Moogstar told us there's a story of an owl that I won't give away. It's psychedelic, but like he told us that like the day we got there, we were just kind of setting up, and he's showing us around, and he starts talking about this magical owl that showed up. And we're like, well, wow, Moogstar like sees the world in this totally delightful psychedelic way. Swamp Dogg sees it in this really just whatever practical, casual way. And I don't know, the house kind of became this vehicle for that.
When I lived in Athens, Georgia in the late 90s, everybody's house had like a jam room where people would just come and hang out and then play music. And it's nice that in your 80s, you can still have that room. Was it ever, you're a musician? Yes.
Yeah, I'm also a musician.
Did you guys get to?
Yeah, we did a little. Yeah, Moogstar stays up all night. When you're there, you'd be like, wow, well, we got to go back to our hotel. And you'd be like, why? Just crash in that guest room and let's jam. So we did a couple times, Ryan and I did. And, Ryan worked on a lot of music out there. Yeah, it's really fun. There's a part where we use a lot of Moogstar's personal phone footage because he records everything he does, and he's like in the studio with all these people, so you get to see that there's like 1,000 different studio setups with different people in the background that he's like keeps turning on the camera. Like that's just what they do. They people come over, they work all night.
Were there scenes that you shot that just didn't fit in the narrative where you're like, God, I wish I could have gotten that in there, of those kinds of scenes? Like, is there anything that's memorable to you? Not to put you on the spot.
Let me think. Well, I mean, there's a ton of stuff on the cutting room floor. or whatever on the massive hard drive that, hopefully this thing someday gets some kind of release that we can have like extras, because there's so much good stuff, especially Moogstar's like music videos. I don't know if you've seen his work is kind of in the movie, but if you just go on his YouTube, they're all there. They're incredible. They're like, I don't know, he's so prolific at this weird video stuff. But scenes of like jamming, not as much, just because you want to, I don't know, how do I put this so that it doesn't sound like mean, but a lot of times a jam isn't the best. It's about the moment, and it's great, but it doesn't sound good or something. We didn't do it right. Yeah, or we didn't do it right, or that room, like, they do all that stuff in there, but it's just full of all kinds of cables and broken equipment and stuff. So it's not like, and the lighting kind of is gross. So it's totally magic, but I feel like if we used it too much, you would lose some of the magic, I guess. At least for the studio type of stuff.
But it's still fun to see. God, it did look like a room where you're like, oh, as a musician, you're like, I want to get in there and play in that room.
Yeah, totally. His piano is incredible. He's got this like white grand piano that's his original piano from the 70s, I forget. Like, yeah, it's so cool.
Well, I'm going to ask you a film question real quick. I always love talking to folks who share directing duties. There's a long tradition of that in documentary filmmaking. But what was your relationship like? How did you decide with Ryan, how you were going to balance this out with this documentary?
We didn't really think about it. So Ryan and I, we have a musical project together called Marijuana Death Squads. It's like this experimental, it's kind of a band, but kind of not. So we've been doing that for like 20 years. So we have like a really good workflow where we just kind of follow the fun compass and, spitball ideas between each other. We have like a language going. So it's really easy to not, we don't argue about whatever. And I don't know, it's like, we also have a co-director, David McMurray, who had shot the original music video and had been out there. So I think Ryan and I were sort of the creative ideas folks, and David and some other people were more of the how the actual, how do you put that, like, they know how to make a movie. So like I've been working in film too, but just on music videos and short docs and stuff, but it's all me and a camera. I wasn't used to, like, we needed an actual crew to like support like a real, like an Airy or whatever we were filming on, this huge camera. So I don't know. We just kind of, Ryan and I think we're the ones who just kept believing that the project needed to be finished. We worked on it for 7 years, over with a lot of long gaps where we were just like, how do we do this? We have no money. Like, how do we, the pool got messed up. Can I swear on this? Okay, the pool got really fucked up. Like, after the first pool painting, someone came in to, like, they told us we needed to seal the pool with like a pool sealer, and he put extra over the pool paint, like the mural, so it turned white and it just disappeared. And that was like, we had spent our own money on that the first round, and so it's really laborious and hard work and costs a ton to paint a pool. So it took us like 3 years to get back there to do it again. I don't know, but yeah. So like, back to the original thing, Ryan and I just have sort of a creative workflow that is just natural somehow, and so splitting up any duties wasn't even a question. It was like, who else can we get to help us do a thing we don't know how to do? Other people on the crew, like Paul Lovelace, a producer, and Ben Wu, producer, they were like circling Swamp Dogg as a possible project they were looking into, and Dr. Jerry, who's Swamp's daughter and manager, excuse me, Dr. Jerry, Swamp's manager, she got a call from them and was like smart enough to not just tell them to go away. She was like, well, these other guys are making a movie and it's kind of taking a long time. Maybe you can call them up and see if they need help. And we talked to them and they were great. So like, we kind of like amassed people who are just like, dog, how do we help?
That's really cool to hear, because you often hear about competing films And
Yeah, it
there's
happened.
not always that collaboration of like, hey, let's combine our efforts.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, I mean, a huge part of this is this balance between these great interviews that you have and this the amazing amount of archival stuff that you must have had to go through, because again, he's just connected to everything, you know, and then getting permissions to use things. I mean, that must have been a huge undertaking for you.
Yeah, well, that's like when we realized we could make a feature out of it, is like he had reached under his bed and pulled out this box. Like after a couple of years, we were kind of like, man, do you have any like old photos, or where is that stuff? Because, you know, everything was on the walls, and we had seen all that, but we were like, how do we show Yvonne, his wife, who had passed away? How do we show that stuff? And he was finally like, here's a giant box full of all my old pictures, a lot of old scrapbook stuff, like old headshots. And then he showed us a closet full of VHS tapes, and we realized that he had been on this TV show, Art Fine. He'd been on it like 20 times. So then we found Art Fine. He brought us to like his storage space where he has all his old tapes. We dug those out, and suddenly we were like, man, we could make a movie. Like, it doesn't have to just be 10 minutes long.
It's like the joy of this part of it is the research and meeting all these people.
Totally. To me, I like watched this movie for 7 years, and like, like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like, we were like, being like detectives or whatever. And I've never done that before. We got an archival researcher, Deborah McClutchy, who's amazing. And she really dug up some stuff that we couldn't find, like that old footage of Swamp on, I don't remember what the show is called. I think it was called Calibration. It's like the only footage we could find that exists of him playing in the 60s, or maybe it's the 70s. It's got like psychedelic trails. She dug that up. Like, we hired her, and like an hour later, she was like, I found this. Have you seen it? We were like, no. We've been working on this for so long. How did you find this? Like, yeah, totally. Exactly. It's so cool. And then, she helped also figure out, because what happens with all this archival stuff is then you have to figure out how you license it. You have to track everybody down. And that, is crazy work that she did.
Kind of connected to that, I'm just curious, with all this incredible music, are you all hopeful to have maybe like a physical release of the music as well?
Yeah, that would be so cool. So that's another nightmare, is music rights. But we think we have it all, at least for the movie. Everything's golden. Like Swamp Dogg signed a lot of deals on napkins with various people that you have to like figure out who owns a piece of this. And so I don't know how that works in the world of like, we license stuff for the movie, but it's probably a different licensing for a soundtrack, like a record, a soundtrack. But we definitely want that. And we have friends, who run various labels. Secretly Group is the label that helped us do the music licensing for this, and they've put out a few of his records, his like newer ones. Oh Boy is put out his newest, the bluegrass record that just came out. That's with Oh Boy, which is John Prine's label.
Oh yeah, oh god,
that footage. Oh, I was in tears on that one.
Oh my god,
that's some of the. I don't want to speak out of, like, I don't really know this, but that is probably some of the last footage of him in a recording studio. Yeah, because he died this year. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, there are so many moments that are amazing in this film, and again, joy is the word we're using to describe this. We feel like it.
That's great. Yeah,
brings joy to the world.
I agree, and so much stuff. Yeah, there's so much stuff in the world that just hasn't been fun, like, while we've been making this project, and it's like, keep coming back to Swamp's house and like feeling that joy, because these guys have been through 80. Swamp Dogg's 82 years old. He's been through over and over some pretty horrible things out there, and he still has this amazing outlook and keeps pushing ahead, making his art.
I love how honest and vocal they both are, Swamp Dogg and Moog Star.
You can just call him Moog. Yeah,
Moog.
Yeah,
I'm always like Moog or Moog too when it comes to the keyboard.
Yeah,
Moog. I love that he gives you a definitive pronunciation.
Yeah.
What did they think when they saw it? Like, what was the feedback?
They loved it. The first time we showed it to him, we probably had a cut that was about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and Swamp's note was just you got way too many endings. Like I thought this thing ended a half hour ago, so we cut all the endings out. He was right, and
That's constructive.
yeah, totally. And there's some really nice scenes that we cut out that I hope exist someday elsewhere. But they, then seeing them, we premiered at South by Southwest in March, and getting to watch them watch it like front row with a crowd of people, and everyone's laughing at all their jokes, and they're laughing at their jokes. It was amazing. Swamp was like overwhelmed with emotion in that Q&A. And then he's every time he's been at a fest and he'll watch it again. I don't know. They seem to love it. And Moogstar has brought his family out, like in Texas. He's got all these kids that live around there. So we've showed it in Austin and Dallas. His kids have been there. They're amazing. They're loving it. I don't know. It's just so fun to see. Seeing this movie in a theater too, it really, like, especially at film festival crowds, they're coming in hoping that a movie's good. So like they're really amped when a movie's funny, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like,
no, I can't wait.
Funny right now.
Yeah. I can't wait to see this with the sidewalk crowd, because sidewalk crowds are notoriously enthusiastic and really positive. Good. Yeah, so it's going to be a great screening.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be there. Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about Sidewalk.
So you're going to be here. It's playing Sunday, August 25th at 6 p.m. in the Lyric Theater. You're going to love that venue.
Oh man, do you know about this theater?
No.
Okay, so it's an old vaudeville theater in downtown Birmingham from the 20s. And it's been through so many iterations. It was a porn house for a while, but it's had a resurgence and a restoration that is incredible. It's beautiful. So I can't wait to see you see it.
Oh man, that's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. Maybe I'll watch. Like, I haven't really been able to watch it since. Like, I kind of hang out the door, like pacing around. But maybe I'll actually watch it this time, just so that I remember what happens in this movie.
Man, well, Isaac, thank you so much for talking to us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Really.
Yeah, can't wait to meet you in person. At the screening.
Let's hang out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thanks as always.